Hello everyone, I'm Ashley at the Silver Bay Public Library, and I am back once again to do a read aloud with you guys of the book Floors by Patrick Carman. We've been reading this one on and off. We finished chapter 10 last time, so if you haven't seen me read the first 10 chapters, make sure to go back into our YouTube videos and watch those first so that you understand what is happening in our story. But without much further ado, we are going to dive right in with Chapter 11, A Haunted Dinner Party. Alright. Leo showed Remy how to double back through the maintenance tunnel in the grounds through a trapdoor in the gardening shed. Unfortunately for Remy, when he opened the trapdoor, Mr. Phipps was in the shed, sharpening his shears. Lost? Asked the old gardener, sliding a blade across a big stone on a bench without even a glance at Remy. Remy thought he might run, but what he really needed was an alibi. I was helping Leo. He showed me the way out. Uh-huh, said Mr. Phipps, holding the shears in the light and running a finger along the edge. Remy gulped. Anyway, you know how Miss Sparks can be. She hates Leo. Any chance I could say you needed some help out here instead? Mr. Phipps looked at Remy then, one dark eyebrow raised, and Remy crumpled. It's only my second day on the job, Mr. Phipps. My mom will kill me if I get fired. Mr. Phipps smiled, laughed soft and deep, and waved his hand toward the door. Better get back where you belong. Tell Miss Sparks I needed help moving dirt bags. Wow, thanks, Mr. Phipps. I totally owe you one. Remy dug into his pocket and held out the smashed remains of his enchilada, which Mr. Phipps gladly accepted. Remy ran with all his might, the red jacket flipping up behind him in the wind. He waited outside the hotel door to catch his breath, then went inside and found that Miss Sparks had returned. Mr. Phipps needed help, Remy blurted. He was a lousy liar. You were sleeping, so I didn't want to wake you. Miss Sparks was fuming mad, but what could she say? She'd been caught snoozing. You and that maintenance boy are up to no good. Don't think I don't know. His name is Leo, said Remy. Miss Sparks stared down at Remy with a look that said, Of course I know his name is Leo, I just don't care. 10 minutes later, she let Remy off for the night with a stern warning about sneaking around. And soon after that, he was standing on the 8th floor landing with Leo, late by 15 minutes for the dinner party they'd been invited to. Are you ready? Said Leo, who had put on his one and only suit and tie, a sad little affair that made Remy laugh. Trust me, yours isn't much better, said Leo, pointing out that Remy was wearing a red and white monkey suit. You got me there, said Remy, and then added, Do you think he'll be in there? You mean Merganser? Yeah, the main mystery dude. Leo shrugged his shoulders, hoping that would be exactly who they would see inside. He had already imagined the dinner party. It would be Merganser, D. Whippet, Leo, Remy, and Betty. The four of them would talk about everything. Betty would quack a lot. All the hidden floors, all the mysteries of the hotel. Here we go, said Leo, taking the skull and crossbones knocker in his hands and whapping against the door 3 times. The door began to open and Remy saw the darkness and shadows inside. He started backpedaling toward the stairs and bumped into something, which made him scream. Lily Ann Pompadour had come up the stairs, half out of breath. She was holding Heine in one arm as she touched up her hair with the other. Oh, good, she said, brushing past Remy as if he didn't exist. I hate to be the last one at a party, and I'm running terribly late. Before Leo and Remy could say a word, Miss Pompadour had gone through the door and slammed it shut. What's she doing in there? Asked Leo. You don't think she was actually invited? Remy shrugged, stepping forward and knocking on the door once more. Hey, if she can do it, I can definitely do it. Let's go in and see what this is all about. Leo's heart was broken. He'd made the mistake of letting himself get excited about seeing Merganser again, but it was beginning to look like the invite list for the party was anything but exclusive. The door opened. This time the 2 boys went inside the haunted room. It was the least rented floor in the entire hotel. In fact, the rumor was that it had never been rented. Not even once. When the door slammed behind them, Remy could see why. It's dark in here, he whispered, and spooky. A collection of bats, were they real or mechanical, flew low overhead, screeching as the boys ran further into the gloom. A dark blue moon hovered in a cloudy sky as the shadow of a werewolf crept into the moss-encrusted trees. The shadow, or whatever was making the shadow, growled, baring its huge, shadowy teeth. I can see why this room isn't very popular, said Remy, practically jumping into Leo's arms. Just remember, it's all fake and you'll be fine, said Leo. It's like a haunted house. Embrace it. It's all fake. Nothing is real, Remy repeated over and over. They heard voices, which they followed and entered a dreary clearing with a long stone table. This can't be, whispered Leo, for the table was very full of people. All the long-term guests were there, even Theodore Bump and the Yanceys. Mom? Said Remy. Remilio! Oh, that's a terrible voice. She beamed with pleasure at the sight of her son. She stood up nervously, still in her maid's uniform. Clarence Fillmore was also there, sitting across from Remy's mom. What's going on here? The question came from Leo and Remy at the same time. All the invitations were the same, said Mr. Fillmore, holding up an envelope. It wasn't tiny like the one Leo and Remy had gotten. It was a normal size. A lot of the other guests held up their invitations too, and Leo's dad read his. Party on the 8th floor. Tell no one. Arrive 8 p.m. sharp. Really? I was only going to stop in for a moment, Pilar said again, feeling awful for not telling her own son. Mostly out of curiosity. Clarence Fillmore nodded the same, but little Jane Yancey felt different. I don't know why the help get to come, especially those two, she pointed in Leo and Remy's general direction. It's a hotel, Daddy. It's for guests. The chandelier over the table fell 2 feet and jerked to a stop, sending all the guests into a fit of screaming and laughter. Jane Yancey glared at Leo. Hey, Mr. Maintenance Man, your light fell down. Aren't you going to fix it? There was one thing Leo and Remy were starting to realize about Jane Yancey. It took a lot to scare her. A single bat flew over the table and disappeared in a burst of flame. When the smoke cleared, Count Dracula was standing at the head of the table. Jane Yancey rolled her eyes as Dracula spoke. Dinner is served. The restaurant staff was dressed in black, grim butlers and maids, and they began serving the first course. Remy and Leo couldn't help notice their parents were sitting across from each other, ignoring everyone else at the table. I think I'll show Remy around the haunted room, said Leo, but we're not hungry. But, said Remy, thinking of how little he'd eaten all day. He looked at Leo and could tell he didn't want to sit at the long table and talk to a bunch of grown-ups. Besides, they were there for a reason the others weren't. They had to find a flying farm keycard. The two headed down a dark path sparkling with fireflies, and when they were out of earshot, Leo reminded Remy of Mercanza's words. Don't you remember from the box? He whispered. When all are gathered, make your flight. This whole thing is a setup so we can move around the hotel unseen. He's helping us, Remy said too loudly, which was followed by the sound of a witch cackling off in the woods. Not everyone's here, said Leo, who was less enthusiastic than Remy. I didn't see Miss Sparks or Mr. Phipps. Remy punched Leo in a friendly sort of way. Even Merganser wouldn't invite that old witch to a party, and Mr. Phipps goes to bed at like 7:30. Dude's probably sleeping. Either way, we need to get out of here, said Leo. It's what the box said. Right. Focus, said Remy. We got this. Just as he said, we got this, a gathering of zombies started following them on the path. 2 more appeared in front of them. We're trapped, yelled Remy. Remy, please try to remember, it's all fake. Leo walked up to one of the approaching zombies and brushed it aside. Its arm fell off and Remy shuddered, but Leo picked it up and tossed it into the gloomy tree. All the zombies followed after it. This is the weirdest hotel room ever, said Remy. That's what you said about the last one. Yeah, but this time I really mean it. They arrived at the opening of a narrow tunnel, which would require getting down on their knees. A creepy slurping sound came from inside. No way, said Remy. Not gonna happen. Whatever's in there will eat my face off. For crying out loud, Remy, said Leo, sitting down in front of the opening and patting the ground. Come on, sit down. Let's just take a break and get you back in the game. Remy sat on the far side of Leo, away from the opening, and a spider the size of a tennis ball drifted down in front of his face. Remy was having some trouble breathing until Leo batted it away with his hand and it went scurrying back into the dark. You're a braver man than I am, said Remy. I don't know how you do it. I've been in here with Merganser about 100 times, Leo offered. I'm telling you, it's all mechanical. He glanced at Remy and felt sorry for him. The first time I came here, I came close to peeing my pants. You're just trying to make me feel better, said Remy. No, honestly, it was pathetic. Remy started laughing as the mechanical spider crawled up next to his leg. Hey, little fella, he said, picking it up by its back as the legs searched for footing. Once he had a hold of it, the spider wasn't so bad. The fact that it was robotic turned it from scary to cool in a hurry. "What's your favorite place to go, besides the Whippet Hotel?" asked Remy, touching the legs and finding they were cold. "The New York Public Library," Leo said without the slightest hesitation. It came to him instantly, but saying it sort of made him sad. "You like books, huh?" Leo sighed deeply, listening to the fake wind rustle through the fake trees. "Yeah, I like books. We don't have much money. Mom used to take me to the library every Saturday. I think I like the books more than she did." Remy knew Leo's mom had passed away a few years back. His own mother had told him that much. "Touchy subject," she said. "Tread lightly." "Your dad doesn't take you? I mean, since..." Remy felt like he'd totally blown it, but Leo didn't mind. He had a hard time going to places we used to go. But I think he might finally be feeling a little better. Leo looked off toward the table, imagining his dad talking to Pilar. He thought of the ring he'd gotten back for him. Maybe his dad was almost ready to start living again. "You're lucky," said Remy, sitting down the giant spider which clung at his leg. "You get to live in this place all the time." Remy was nervous about saying anything more, because he'd always worried his friends would judge him if he told the truth. "It's a pretty good gig, I have to admit," said Leo. "Where do you live? What's your dad do?" Remy didn't say anything for a few seconds, and Leo thought maybe he should just crawl into the cave and forget about it. "Stanton Island, that's where we live," Remy blurted out. "After work, we take the subway to Battery Park, then catch the ferry, then hoof it to a crummy old building, then hoof it up the stairs to a crummy little apartment. Dad's not in the picture." "There, he said it." "Must take a while to get home," said Leo, figuring it up in his head. "An hour and a half here, an hour and a half back, but it's a good job and Mom needs it." Leo was about to say he would talk to his dad and see if maybe something could be worked out, but before he could say anything, he saw Jane Yancey walking toward them on the path. "I give her points for being brave," whispered Leo. "Nothing scares that kid." "Wanna bet?" said Remy, picking up the spider. "You wouldn't." Jane Yancey marched right up and stood in front of them with her hands on her hips. "I bet you're both too chicken to go in there," she said, staring at the hole and hearing the noise. "You got that right," said Remy. "No way we are going in there." Jane looked at Remy like he was the most pathetic kid on the planet. On planet Earth, and crouched in front of the hole. As soon as she started crawling inside, Remy set the giant spider on her back. Jane backed out of the hole and stood up. She had a strange look on her face. The spider crawled on top of her head, then down on her face. Then Jane Yancey screamed and ran away. "I guess there is something that scares that kid," said Leo. "Come on, let's get out of here while the getting is good." Remy went first, then Leo, and before they knew it, they'd passed the foot-long slurping cave slugs and entered a small room with a glowing floor. "There," said Leo, "on the wall." "You sure this is gonna work?" "I'm never sure of anything in the Whippet, but the box made it clear. Slut Cave, turn the goat 2 times around, push." There were hieroglyphics of flying animals on the walls, one of which was a goat with wings far too small to lift it off the ground. Leo covered the goat with his palm, turned his hand twice, and pushed. The flying goat spun once, then twice, followed by a ba sound from the ceiling. "Is that it?" asked Remy, staring up into the high arch of the cave. The flying farm keycard?" Leo nodded. "Very rare and very high." The key had descended out of a crack into the stone and fallen free, only to be caught on a bed of cobwebs high overhead. The keycard had a dairy cow pattern on it, white with black splotches. Remy piped in. "Let me guess, fake cobwebs from the fake spider crawling on Jane Yancey's face." "You guessed it." Remy jumped but came up short by at least a foot. "Get on my back," he said. "You can reach it from up there." Remy leaned over and Leo climbed aboard, standing on Remy's shoulders. He still couldn't reach it, so he leapt in the air and knocking Remy into a ninja death roll. After they both tumbled onto the floor of the cave, they sat up, only to find Jane Yancey standing at the exit, her arms crossed over her 6-year-old chest. "You put that spider on my back. I know you did. I hope you had a good laugh, because I'm telling my father, and when I do, both your parents are going to lose their jobs. What do you think of that, spider boy and dumb face?" It was all Leo could do not to tie up Jane Yancey and leave her with the slugs, but he stayed calm, looked at Remy and shrugged. "Which one of us is Spider Boy?" asked Remy. "Forget Spider Boy, you're both dumb faces." Remy knelt down next to Jane Yancey and looked her in the eye. I think someone of your ability could be useful to us. Have you ever done any spying? Leo couldn't believe his ears. You really are a dumb face. Jane, intrigued by Remy's question, looked at Leo. Your dad is a dumb face. Leo realized the entire situation was becoming ridiculous. He would not stoop to Jane Yancey's level. Instead of dumb-facing her back, he said, we're pretty sure Miss Sparks is a double-agent super spy who wants to take over the hotel, hit it with a wrecking ball, and build a fur coat factory in its place. This was, in a world, brilliant. There wasn't a 6-year-old in Manhattan who didn't hate the idea of fur coats, given that they always came from cuddly animals. Jane Yancey looked them both over carefully, searching for signs of deceit. Finding none, she put out her hand. Partners. Remy shook Jane Yancey's sticky little hand, then gave her a mission. Keep an eye on Miss Sparks, he said. If she tries to follow us, you'll know we're in trouble. Since we're the good guys. Obviously, said Leo, we're the good guys. Jane scowled at Leo, then returned her gaze to Remy. I'm good at following people around and shin-kicking. I bet you are, said Leo. Jane Yancey hauled off and kicked Leo in the shin, which felt about the same as being whacked with a baseball bat. See? Told you so. She laughed at Leo as he jumped around the cave. Then she crawled away in search of Miss Sparks. Remy laughed at Leo, but only a little. She'll follow you around all the time, said Leo, rubbing the sting out of his shin. Getting kicked was a better deal. Remy agreed Leo was probably right, then looking up at the ceiling, expecting to see the flying farm key. Already got it, said Leo, holding the cow pattern card out for Remy to see. Let's get out of here before she comes back with a weapon. I have a feeling we've created a monster. And that was the end of chapter 11. But chapter 12 is pretty short, so I think we're going to read it anyway. And chapter 12 is called The Flying Farm Room. So let us just dive right in. Leo had a feeling about needing a duck. He couldn't say why other than the fact that Merganser had always believed that a journey with a duck was safer than a journey without one. But it was more than that. They were exploring the higher levels of the Whippet Hotel, which had always seemed more unpredictable than the lower levels, and Leo had a bad feeling about the Flying Farm Room, a notoriously confusing place. He needed all the backup he could get. And so, after sneaking away from the haunted dinner party, Leo had taken Remy through the maintenance tunnels into the duck elevator and up to the roof, detouring their entire plan by a half hour in order to retrieve Betty. She was not happy to be bothered, and Leo thought, once again, how crabby this particular duck had become of late. Without Merganser's silver keycard, the Flying Farm Room was only accessible by using Flying Farm keycards. The keycards weren't made in the usual way, so they were tough to come by. Miss Sparks kept them in a safe in her room, and they were only handed out on exceptional occasions. In the past, when someone stayed in the room, extraordinarily rarely, Merganser D. Whippet had attended to the room himself, making sure every detail was in order. Certainly no one had stayed in the room since Mr. Whippet's disappearance, and this worried Leo greatly. I've only been in this room once before, he said, standing in front of the door with his friend and his duck. It was a tad wild. I can only imagine what it must be like now. I don't think anyone has been in here in quite a while. It can't be any worse than the haunted room, Remy said. That place gave me the creeps. Leo stood back a moment and looked all around, thinking how far they'd come. They were on the 9th floor. Beyond that lay the roof, and between the 9th floor and the roof, there was the possibility of a 10th floor that no one but Merganser had ever seen. Not even the maintenance men. We've worked our way to the top of the Whippet, Leo observed. I was just thinking the same thing, said Remy. 9 floors, plus the hidden floors. How many are there? Leo counted in his head. The ring of rooms, or the room of rings, the railroad room, the secret room they hadn't found yet. I counted 13 if you include the basement. Not the luckiest numbers, Remy said. Maybe there's another hidden floor. Or 100 more. Leo had been making a joke, but saying it made it seem possible. Maybe there were more rooms than either of them could imagine. Betty quacked, nipping at Leo's pant leg. Something's wrong with your duck, Remy noticed. Are you sure we should take her with us? I'm sure, said Leo. Let's get going before someone finds us. He placed the Flying Farm keycard in the slot. The key disappeared, the door made a ma noise, and a new keycard appeared. It was gray, with a goat face and words printed on it. Come right in. We've been waiting for you. Leo thought the note had an ominous feel to it. This is weird, said Remy, but he went right in, just like the card said he should. Leo took the great card and put it in the pocket of his dinner jacket, which he had failed to shed after the dinner party. He wished he'd had time to stop in the basement and put his overalls back on. The suit was itchy and uncomfortable, plus it lacked the many tools he preferred to carry around with him. Tools he had found were a comfort on an unpredictable journey. The door unlocked and they slipped through, captivated by what lay on the other side. They would have been smart to pay closer attention as the door swung slowly shut, because it didn't quite shut all the way. Someone was in the hall, the toe of a boot holding the door open by the tiniest of cracks. As Leo and Remy entered the flying farm room, Remy dove for the floor, which was bright green and soft like grass. "Whoa, heads up," he yelled, but since Leo had been in the room once before, he knew a few things Remy did not. Betty waddled out into the flying farm room without them, apparently in search of a pond or a loaf of pumpernickel. "Was that a flying pig or have I lost my mind?" asked Remy. "Just remember, none of this is real." "It looks plenty real to me. That pig just about knocked me off my feet." Remy stood up again and the two boys looked across the long room. The ceiling was only 10 feet overhead, but it looked for all the world like an endless blue sky dotted with white clouds. Then Remy was back on the turf, dodging a herd of oncoming sheep that had cannonballed from the sky. There were 11 of them in a V formation, and they were faster than the pig had been. Remy was pretty sure he had heard them laughing as they whooshed past like 11 wool-covered fighter planes. "These flying farm animals play rough," Remy yelled, but Leo was still standing, looking toward a fenced-in area way off in the corner of the room. He didn't seem to take much notice of the flying pigs, sheep, or even the flying bull that was headed right toward them, spewing fire from its nose. Leo, please tell me you know something I don't, otherwise a 200-pound, fire-breathing bull is about to ram us into the turf." Remy cowered as the bull landed 3 feet away, preparing to charge right over the top of them both. "It's been nice knowing you, Leo. Tell my mom I love her and kick Jane and Nancy in the shin for me." Leo was tempted to let the roost go a little longer, but they had work to do. Playing with the animals would have to wait. "Everything up there, the sky, the flying animals, is all fake, remember," said Leo. "Even if it's a fancy robot, it's still a fancy robot bull," said Remy, opening his eyes and turning back to the huge beast, which was now inches from his face. "You can pet it if you want," said Leo. "It won't hurt you." But the bull looked so real, everything did, that Remy just couldn't bring himself to do anything but stay curled up in a ball. "Oh, for crying out loud," said Leo, stepping toward the bull and reaching his hand out to its fire-breathing face. "No, don't do it, Leo. It'll fry your arm off." "Just watch," said Leo, and Remy peeked through his fingers, which were covering his face. When Leo reached out, his hand went right through the bull's head. He walked around the beast, sweeping his hand through its monstrous body, then slapped it on the butt. The bull reared up on 2 legs, slamming down on top of Remy. "It's a hologram," said Leo. "Everything in the sky, including the sky, they're all holograms." Remy reached out his hand and ran it through the flames shooting out of the bull's nose. "I am the happiest kid in New York City," said Remy, swishing his hand back and forth through the bull's legs. He got up and started taunting the bull, just for fun. "We don't really have time to play with the animals right now," said Leo. "We have to find that hidden room, and I think I know how." Leo and Remy walked through the middle of the flying farm with its rolling hills of astroturf, its split-rail fences, and the sounds of animals all around them. Betty was honking at a herd of 6 goats that was flying around a red barn, which was also the master bedroom, and Leo called for her to follow. He'd been thinking about the fence around the cows and how the cows weren't moving. "Let me have a look at the new key card," Remy said, seeing the herd of goats land on the red barn and begin eating the shingles off the roof. Leo gave him the card, warning Remy to be very quiet if he could. They were approaching a group of sleeping cows, their wings fluttering softly. "But cows don't sleep during the day," said Remy. He'd never been to a real farm in his life, but even he knew cows only slept at night and were easily startled. Leo shrugged. "I guess flying cows sleep during the day and fly around at night. How am I supposed to know?" Remy examined the goat key card, moving more carefully, and noticed that there was a button on the edge, similar to one on a cell phone. He pushed the button, and the key card came to life as a touchscreen. "Leo, you gotta see this." Leo and Remy huddled over the screen, which showed the floor plan of the room. It also showed one goat sitting on the roof of the red barn. "Do you suppose?" asked Remy, putting his finger on the screen and sliding the goat away from the barn and out over the green grass. The 2 boys looked back at the real barn and saw that one goat had flown away, following wherever Remy moved his finger along the screen. "This must be the goat we're looking for," said Leo, thinking of the words from the lid of the last box. "A flying goat will be of use." His name is Merle, said Remy, bringing the goat up close and seeing he had a name tag around his neck. Welcome to the adventure, Merle, Leo whispered. Be as quiet as a mouse. Merle baaed softly. Shh, said Leo as they approached the pasture gate. We'll need to tip them. Remy knew that it was wrong to tip cows in real life. They had a hard time getting back up, making it a pretty cruel thing to do. But virtual cow tipping sounded like a lot of fun to Remy, and he hoped that a holographic cow would tip as well as a real one. They left Betty and Merle behind, hoping they wouldn't quack and baa too much, and tiptoed into the pasture. The cows all had their heads down, eyes closed, giant chests heaving slowly. Ready? Leo whispered. Remy put the goat keycard in his right jacket pocket and nodded. Leo signaled with his fingers. 1, 2, 3. They pushed the biggest cow, and though their hands went right through, the cow still fell over on its side with a loud thud. As soon as it did, its wings began flapping wildly, waking up the other 5 cows. Confused, they flew into one another, bouncing back and forth until the one the boys had tipped bounced into the ceiling, and a familiar sight appeared. I never thought I'd see a hole in the sky, said Remy, and that's exactly what it looked like. A ladder shot down, touching the astroturf in the pasture, and the hole in the sky waited. The cows flew off noisily in the direction of the front door as Leo ran back to the gate. I'll get Betty, you get Merle up the hole as fast as you can. Remy had Merle up and out of sight in no time at all, but Leo had trouble with Betty. It wasn't like her to run away from him, but he had found himself chasing Betty around the red barn when he heard a terrible sound. Someone was putting a keycard in the door. Remy, get down, yelled Leo, catching Betty and swerving into the barn for cover. When Leo peeked around the corner, he saw a tall beehive hairdo leaning into the room. Miss Sparks had found them. I know you're in here, she taunted. I can smell enchiladas. Remy, who was hiding in the cow pasture, sniffed the air around him and wondered if it was true. Even though he'd given it to Mr. Phipps, he'd carried his lunch around in his pocket for a long time. Leo was holding Betty's bill shut, but she was a strong duck and she kept swiping her powerful neck back and forth. I'm going to count to 3, said Miss Sparks, batting away an annoying pig that was trying to land in her hair. She, like Leo, knew the animals in the flying farm weren't real. I despise the flying farm, she said under her breath, and then she started to count. 1. She took several steps into the room. 2. She took a few more steps nearing the red barn. She was about to say 3 when Betty finally got her bill free from Leo's hand and honked loudly right in his face. Run for it, yelled Leo, and Remy was up in a flash, heading for the ladder. Hold it right there, screamed Miss Sparks, stepping on a holographic cow pie the size of a frisbee. Leo ran out of the barn, carrying Betty like a football. Miss Sparks was about to take chase, but she didn't have a chance. Jane Yancey darted out in front of her, one hand on her hip and one behind her back. I caught you, the rich little girl proclaimed. Miss Sparks wasn't sure what to do. The girl's father was a zillionaire. You keep all these exotic animals up here so you can get their fur, yelled Jane Yancey. She kicked Miss Sparks in the shin, then pulled the giant spider out from behind her back and threw it into the beehive hairdo. Miss Sparks, unaware of the earlier dinner party and mortally afraid of spiders, flung her head violently back and forth. The herd of flying sheep circled the beehive. The bull charged. It was mayhem in the flying farm room. That'll teach you, said Jane Yancey. I'm telling my dad you're running a secret fur farm in this hotel. She marched right out of the room and slammed the door. Miss Sparks ran behind her, a menagerie of flying animals tailing her, and a giant mechanical spider latched onto her beehive. When she looked back one last time, Leo and Remy were gone. It was as if they'd never been there to begin with. And that was the end of Chapter 12. Going to mark Chapter 13 for next time. Wasn't that just a crazy ride? Oh my gosh, so many twists and turns. I also never realized there's a bunch of ducks on the front cover. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed listening. I have a lot of fun reading these stories for you guys, as well as the younger picture books I read at 10:30. Yeah. Alright, well, anyway, thank you so much for listening. We have plenty of books at the library. Don't forget, make sure to come in and get some fun things to read for over the summer. But nevertheless, thank you so much for listening. Hope you come back next time. Bye-bye.